Welcome to a brand new episode of Aoife Has Forgotten What These Books Are About. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am bringing a kind of twofold video. So first we're going to wrap up my January physical TBR and then we're going to pick out my February TBR. So I have got an advent calendar here that I bought at the end of November, start of December. Every book that I am reading from my physical TBR means that I can open one of these doors. I'm going for a maximum of 4 months because I want to keep this going until about June of this year. And if I get all 24 doors opened by the end of June, I get to buy a physical book. And until then, I am on a physical book ban. I had to think about this over the month because I didn't know what to do about DNFs. I didn't know what to do about books that I hadn't finished. I have decided they've come off my TBR. I haven't read them, okay, but they've still come off my TBR in another way, so they're going to count. If I haven't finished a book, it counts as opening the door. But if I haven't started the book at all, it doesn't count towards opening a door, and I have to keep it closed. But I'm not going to carry it over until the next month. So if there's any book that I haven't finished this month that I had started or that I hadn't started at all, I don't get to carry that over until February and I don't get to open any of the doors. I feel like that is like the surest way for me to get through my TBR, and also I'm going to have chocolate to motivate me to read it. The 4 books from January are these, and I'm going to talk about them, what I thought about them, whether or not I actually read them, and then we're going to pick out the February ones. I don't remember what order it was that I picked these out, but the first book that I'm going to talk about is Dominicana by Angie Cruz. And this was actually the first book that I read in 2021 at all. I did really enjoy this one. I think it took me a little while to get into because there are no quotation marks like any of Sally Rooney's books. So it did take me a little while to figure out, is this direct speech or is this just somebody describing something? In this book, we're following Anna, who is 15 years old, and she's from the Dominican Republic. And she is basically a child bride to a wealthy man in the community named Juan, isn't it? Yeah. So Juan proposes to her and he brings her to New York City and they start up a new life there. But Anya is really not adjusting to life in New York at all. She stays in her apartment all day. Juan goes out to work every morning and Anna kind of stays in the apartment all day unless she's going to a Dominican grocery store to buy vegetables for them to have for dinner. And throughout the course of the novel, there is a civil unrest in the Dominican Republic and Juan goes back to fight on one of the sides. And during this time, Anna becomes much more out of her shell and she gets much more kind of adjusted to life in New York City. She goes and learns English. She finds out that she's pregnant while Juan is away, and she's still sending money back to her family in the Dominican Republic. She sends letters every now and then to kind of keep in touch with her family and find out what's going on with them. This was a really great read. It's a historical book in that it's set in the 1950s, 1960s, and it really gives you an insight into what life was like for people who came from Central America to the US to kind of rebuild their lives and to start anew. It also gives you an insight into the civil unrest that was happening in the Dominican Republic at the time and how families would get caught up in all of that. And I really enjoyed reading this one. However, it does come with quite a few trigger warnings. There are quite a lot of instances of domestic abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. All of that happens throughout this book. So that is just something to be aware of for this one. That means I can open door 1. And I did, as I said, I had already opened door 1, so that is a little bit easier. But I got a mini bueno. I'm going to eat those off camera. The next one that I attempted was Last Ones Left Alive by Sarah Davis Goff. I went into this knowing that it was a horror. I tried it. I knew horror wasn't my kind of thing. And it wasn't my kind of thing. So I did DNF it, and that became my very first DNF of the year. I loved the writing and I liked the scenery, but when we started to get into the nitty gritty horror sides of it and attacks from the scree and that kind of a side of the book, it just wasn't my kind of thing. So unfortunately, this one went on the DNF pile. And that's book 2, which I don't know where door 2 is. Door 2. So in here, I'm actually going to have to open this one because I haven't opened that yet. I have a mini country. That's kind of a one with that kind of oat grain things in it. They're not my favorite. Of the three of these, they're not my favorite. The next book that I read was The Rest of the Story by Sarah Dessen. This was a recommendation from a friend of mine from back in Dublin. She read this, she absolutely loved it, and she said that they felt like that would be my kind of thing. So I went into it, but I didn't really love it. I think I ended up giving this one about 3 stars with Cawpile. So this book follows Emma, who she has lost her mother several years ago, and her father has remarried and is now going on his honeymoon with his new wife. And while he's on his honeymoon, Emma goes to stay with her mother's family in quite an affluent area where she grew up. It's kind of about Emma reconnecting with her mother's family, reconnecting with her cousins, and seeing how they live their day-to-day lives. They run a motel, how they clean up after that. And I don't know, Emma came into it saying that she wasn't the privileged cousin, that she wasn't the cousin who had all the money, and that she wasn't the one that was up above everybody else. But there were quite a lot of instances in this book where I felt like that was the way that it should have been. That was how Emma was portrayed quite a lot throughout this book, that she was the rich cousin, that she was the rich family member who had just gotten back in contact, and that they didn't all really love having her around. As well as that, I thought that the book was quite long. I mean, it's something like 440 something pages, 440 pages on the nose. It could easily have been about 150 pages shorter and still a great book. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I don't think I'll go back to it anytime soon. Door 3 is here. Here we go. Another Bueno. Another Kinder Bueno. And I want to the last one. Can we get a 4 swoop? Yeah, we can. I absolutely loved A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I think there was one area of it that gave it a negative rating though, and that is because there is an animal death in this book, and that is something that I didn't know going into it, but something that I think a lot of people would want to be aware of. So this follows Pippa, who is doing a school project about a murder that had happened a couple of years ago. And it still hasn't really been solved. They don't know where the missing girl is, and there is another person who has taken his own life who is connected to this case. But she goes through all of the research, she goes through all of the evidence, she starts interviewing other people that are connected to the case, and starts putting pieces together and realizing that not everything is as it seems, and not everybody is who they say that they are. This book encapsulated me. What I loved about it is that it's not just prose. There's so much more about it. There is also, I'm trying to find a piece of it. There's also like Pippa's diary entry logs for when she's writing up her notes. Or there are interview logs, or there are interview transcripts, I should say. Or what's this kind of thing? Text messages, emails. I love multimedia in books. It just speeds up the narrative so much. I did, however, think also that this book was a little bit long. It could have done with maybe 50 to 75 pages taken off. But I did love that this was not a heavy romance book. That's something that I think should be featuring a lot in young adult fiction, that not every book needs to have a central romance in it. And this book, while there was a romance element to it, and while 2 characters did end up in a relationship, it isn't heavy throughout the book. Throughout the book, they're mainly friends more than getting to know each other as anything more than that. And that is something that I really, really loved about this book. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. And yes, I did end up knocking off 1 star just because the dog died. Not sorry about that at all. It's a touchy subject. 4 for 4. Where is door 4? Down here at the bottom. For number 4, we have got a little mini Kinder Regal. I forget what those are called in English anymore. January's wrapped up. Time to find out what's for February. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle them around. Okay, book number 1 in February. I hope that some of these are going to be romances at least. Is We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han. As with Good Girl's Guide to Murder, if the first book doesn't come out in a series, I'm just going to read the first book and then go on from there. So, where is The Summer I Met You? Oh God, where is it? So, the first book that I'm going to read in February is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I have loved the All the Boys I've Loved Before series. I've got all 3 of the German ones actually right here behind me. I haven't read anything about this series. I am going into it completely blind. And I think that that's a good way to go into a book, not knowing anything about it, not having any expectations, just going in and enjoying the ride. Book number 2. They're all bunched together. Is The Quiet at the End of the World by Lauren James. I think I wrongly named it, but what I actually have is The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. I think this is a standalone book. I don't think it has anything to do with that, but this is about a girl, I believe, who is left behind on a planet when it goes into destruction. I think. Romy Silvers is the only surviving crew member on a spaceship bound for a new planet. She's the loneliest girl in the universe until she hears that a second spaceship has launched from Earth with a single passenger on board, a boy called Jay. I'm not really big into sci-fi. I have a feeling that this is a kind of a sci-fi elementy book, but I am very willing to give this one a try. Book number 3. Just having a look to see what I want it to be. I can't open this. Book number 3. Oh my god, Disa Ashling number 2 by Sarah Breen and Emer McLeod. As with The Summer Turned Pretty, first book is actually going to be the one that I read. So that is Oh My God, Disa Ashling by Sarah Breen and Emer McLeod. It is the first book in the Ashling trilogy. I think it's just a trilogy. I don't think they're working on a 4th one right now. But this is the German copy. And I bought this one because I wanted to read more in German in 2021. I wanted to up my German level so much that I can actually read and understand a book fully in German. So I thought that a good way to start that would be something that I'm really familiar with. And what am I more familiar with than Irish culture? I'm also so interested to see how this is going to translate, not just in a linguistic way, but also in a cultural way, where there are so many things in this book that are specifically Irish, such as playing GAA or having a pack of meanies, which are a type of crisps. I'm really excited to see how is that going to translate across the water. I'm so interested to see how this goes. But also I am a little bit worried because what if I don't understand it? I mean, that is a possibility. And finally, number 4 is Rose Interrupted by Patrice Lawrence. This is one of the YA10 from, I think, 2 years ago, 3 years ago by now. It's either that or Orange Boy was on the list. I had intended to do this as a buddy read with my friend Rachel, a year or 2 ago, and then neither of us actually did anything about that. So I'm going to get in touch with her, see if she wants to do a buddy read about it, and if not, then I'll just read it along by myself. And hopefully by the end of the month, I'll have ticked it off. These 4 are my February physical TBR for the month. Let's check back in at the end of the month and see if I can open any more of these doors. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.